I've said it before. L is a character that I feel less people would like if more people understood him. Perhaps L's greatest accomplishment was the trust he commanded. Look at the lengths and effort Kira endured just to begin approaching the level of clout L used to have. For Kira, it was a great accomplishment when the United States decided to leave him to his whims. Compared to L's total dominance of the international law enforcement community at the beginning of the series, it's pretty debatable which is more impressive, but I would give the point to L. When L is on a case, he can tell the law enforcement of any country to jump, and they'll ask, how high? It wouldn't be impossible for him to invent an important case either. Now consider that it's not uncommon for him to act outside of the law of the country that he's hunting in, as demonstrated when he illegally surveilled Kira suspects. Clearly, the amount of power at L's fingertips is absurd to fathom. It would likely be no exaggeration to call him the most powerful man in the world. This is Kato, I am Zero, and today, let's talk about L.
This video is brought to you by our new webcomic, Dr. Song's Very Human Robot Zero. Witness the clearly untrue retellings of the channel's early days, and don't believe a word of it. Dr. Song is a down-on-his-luck scientist determined to prove his genius to the world. To do so, he's invented a revolutionary AI named Zero. With his groundbreaking robot, the two are set to undergo their riskiest experiment yet. Becoming YouTubers. This is making me nostalgic. Can Dr. Song and Zero trick the world into believing the robot is a real human being, or will they be exposed as nothing more than failures to the scientific community?
How did L get to this point? Going strictly by material from the original series, it's a bit hard to explain this relationship. It's stated that he's solved difficult cases for them before, but given how the ICPO defer to and speak about him, it makes you wonder what world-threatening crimes L has solved and just never mentioned again. But we do know some stuff about L's backstory if we use the extra material. The Whammy's House in One Day are two short side stories about L's life. As we all know, you could choose to think of them as canon to the L Changed the World universe, because they were originally published in file number 15. But I'm going to think of them as canon to the original series now that they've been published in Death Note short stories, alongside other canon one-shots and Volume 13 content. I sort of see that as their way of bringing it into the canon. I also want to use them, because these one-shots are so fun, but so obscure, and I went through the headache of digging them up again, so now you have to hear about it. If you don't want to use file number 15 content, just think of L as a guy who's the world's greatest detective, and Wataru as his benefactor. In the Whammy's House, we see L's first arrival to the orphanage that would become his home. This occurs some time after solving some mystery that we don't get details about. We witness that L is not a normal child when he's confronted with children that he quickly deems bullies and beats up. I should note that according to L's memories, these kids were probably just trying to cuddle him and be friendly. This abnormal and surprising strength is something L would reference possessing later in life. He would also later repeat the victorious cry he let out after Wataru found him standing over the beaten boys. I am justice. Wataru also found L hoarding the toys he liked because he was stronger. Finally, L also first asked for a computer in the pursuit of power, as he put it, as he believed communication through the internet could get him that. It's possible that even at this young age, L believed in the morality of victory that Light discusses in the main series. Simply put, L says that if the police win, Kira is evil, but if Kira wins, he is justice. It's fitting that these words would become his expression of victory, as L's motivation for his moral battle with Kira comes from his desire to win. His assertion of himself as the embodiment of justice prepares the wicked for his judgment. And although he personally admitted defeat to Kira's strategy and resources, L bet on his successors, who he couldn't choose between, and who delivered L's prophecy of justice in the end. After L gets a computer and becomes more reclusive, his understanding of the world around him deepens. He's able to multiply Wataru's fortune by over 20 times in a couple of years just by controlling his investments. It's also possible and even likely that his understanding of the world of politics expanded as much as his understanding of the world of economics. This could explain how he's able to sit above international law in the future, but I don't want to get too speculative. After getting bored of his games and toys as a teen, L stumbles upon the case of a serial killer in the news. He hadn't indulged detective work as a hobby since before he came to Whammy's house, but it quickly enraptured him. Finding this killer became more interesting than any of his other pursuits. And that's why he became the world's greatest detective. This is the most detailed version of a backstory we get for L, and it suggests that he didn't become a detective because of the innate sense of justice. He knew that he was stronger and smarter than other people, so he did what he liked, not without hurting people along the way, and he ultimately decided that he liked detective work. And even that enjoyment was derived from the challenge. It wasn't that he liked helping people. So we get the picture of L as someone who believed that might makes right, and someone who asserted himself at the top of the world to inflict upon it his own view of justice. So maybe when someone else rose up who would begin to judge the wicked, L saw it as a challenge. But he's too stubborn to give up his throne without a fight. This Kira would first have to prove himself to be a match for the might of L. All of this material does get reinforced in the main series before you ask. There is also the author's statement about L being the quote-unquote strongest human aside from Light. Light and L also get into physical altercations more than once, and Light never gets dropped by L. So it's implied by the author's perspectives and the narrative that L and Light are gifted, powerful people who have always looked down on and felt disconnected from those around them. This is why they begin to connect even though they're enemies, as they can relate to one another's perspective of the world. L himself directly states and implies that he and Light have similar thoughts and worldviews on numerous occasions, which is foreshadowed when Light echoed L's "I am justice" mantra, and confirmed when L calls them both childish people who hate to lose. So it's not a stretch to say that L does believe in the philosophical idea raised by Light, that Kira can become justice if he is the ultimate victor. This is probably the closest thing to a moral reason L had for opposing Kira. You can say that he finds Kira's killings abhorrent, but I couldn't find any instance of the narrative implying that's what he truly believes. L is more likely fighting for this right to be the ultimate authority on justice.
Hey guys, Post Video Zero here. My new mic arrived just in time to be late for this video, but I wanted to expand on a few things that I left out, because they do seem relevant to the conversation. There are some scenes where L arguably may show some genuine outrage at Kira, or at least some concern for the lives of others. The scene where Ukita dies springs to mind. Aizawa observes L subtly gripping his legs in anger. But is this truly moral outrage, or frustration that the game has started cheating? Up to this point, Kira has only been killing people who reveal their names and faces. Now, police are dying after only revealing their faces. Kira is cheating. Like I said, I think this scene can be interpreted multiple ways. But it's worth noting that this is a scene where Soichiro, the only member of the task force who can handle the truth, is not present. Then the scene where L and Light visit Soichiro in his hospital room and L seems to care for the chief's health. Arguably, he was just there to get deeper insight into Light, who he already knows is Kira at this point. There's also the time where he goes out of his way to save Matsuda's life, but it's pretty easy to argue that regardless of his personal thoughts on the matter, he didn't really have much choice. I just wanted to mention and acknowledge these moments where it seems like they're implying L actually cares about the lives of the members of the task force, and if you want to say that L does care about them, then you can interpret those scenes to benefit your position. Just to briefly go over some ideas I've discussed in previous videos, L has admitted to the task force that he is childish and hates to lose. L also manipulates the task force, but he mostly only does this to battle Light, or arguably when the chief isn't around. L used the lives of the FBI agents as sacrificial pawns to hone in on Light. Finally, he also admits to the kids at Whammy's house that he is a monster who always lies. Considering that this statement was made while he was working on the Kira case, it's likely that he had already started to see some of himself in Kira, and possibly Light Yagami depending on when this conference took place. Remember when Beyond Birthday tried to create a case L couldn't solve, and L tried to dunk on him by finding one FBI agent to solve the case for him? Death Note and Other Note is deemed canon, by the way. One of the few details about L's past we get in the main series, actually along with the mention of his involvement in the LABB murder cases, is that he once competed for the title of the world's greatest detective against two other detectives named Araldo Coyle and Denuve. It's absurd that I remember that name without having to Google it. I am wasting file space. I mean, brain cells. The fact that L indulges in contests like these against other detectives and criminals like Beyond Birthday in the past definitely suggests that he's the type to get swept up in the romanticism of rivalry, much like Mello. And we all know how Mello decided to use the Death Note. So there's so much material building up to this preponderance of evidence that L prioritizes the challenge of the Kira case over any moral position on the matter, which becomes ironic when he calls himself Justice. Throughout the main series, L is bouncing between two ideas of who Kira truly is. In his own mind, Kira either must be a god from a higher plane of existence who is laughing at him for his hubris, or it must be an immature genius, much like his younger self. An older Light Yagami himself opposed Kira when he lost his memories. So do you really think it's that unlikely that L might have become Kira if given the chance, under slightly different circumstances?
Fun video, right? I have to admit, it's a little disheartening making content in the face of all this heat we've been getting. Thanks to everyone in the Discord server and for all the supportive comments. You guys are getting us through this. I'm not a liar. Not really, I think. Do I just lack L's self-awareness? I don't know. Why did I even make this video? Who am I trying to help? This video is just going to ruin L for both sides of the Kira debate. Do you deserve the truth? Is it a kindness or a curse? We're much like the task force in a way. Although we didn't understand L, we trusted him. Is that too much to ask? He lied to us, and we thought he was a good guy. How do you feel now? So tell me, why should I tell you the truth?